Now, of course, we know that the legal framework needs to be in place to revisit the question of what farm workers earn. Take us through the consultation process and why you feel that the deadline of December 4 will not be able to be reached.
In terms of the basic conditions of employment Act, we can't review the sectoral determination before we finished the 12 months period. And what we are doing now as the Department of Labor, we have also informed the workers themselves and the farmers themselves to say it won't be possible that we can finalize the issue of sectoral determination on the 4th, based on the Labor Relations Act and also on the BCEA. And therefore, what we have said is we have discussed the matter with the farmers to say they must agree to negotiate with the unions, because those workers are the members of the unions that allows for negotiations. And in fact, in most cases, the wages for those farm workers were negotiated through the unions. The sectoral determinations only assist those farm workers who are not the members of the unions. But we have said even the negotiations through the unions, it should not be less than what we have determined as a minimum wage.
Let's park that, Minister. What have you determined? Because when we spoke to worker representatives last time round, they were getting 70 rand a day. Farm owners were offering 80, and their demand was for 150. What is the minimum wage that your department is laying down as the absolute minimum that they can be paid?
On a monthly basis, it's 1,375, and then on a weekly basis, I think it's about 370 something, and per day it's plus minus 77 rands a day. And I must say, the decision that was taken, it was taken based on the recommendations of the Employment Conditions Commission, which consists of organized labor, organized business, and the government. Now, based Minister, on their recommendations, that's why we have determined that particular proposal.
Now, of course, farm workers' organizations have spoken about rising costs and, of course, the poor living conditions of farm workers, and they've said that the amount of 150 rand is something that they're not going to step back from, given the fact that there's been all the spiking, increases. And, of course, in other sectors like mining, people have seen that, they can push for higher wages. How are you going to accommodate, their concerns around the fact that what you've laid down is simply not enough to cover their basic living expenses?
As we speak, we are doing the public hearings where we are expecting the farm workers and the farmers to make contributions, and we have said each of them, they must comment within 15 days so that we can look at how we're going to go forward with the process. And after we have finalized those public hearings, then we'll write a report and then send it to the commission for the review, and then the commission will do a final recommendation to the ministers based on the conditions that are there. And now, I must also say, in terms of the living conditions of the farm workers, the rural development in particular is responsible for that, and we have agreed that whenever we deal with the issues of accommodation, both the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Rural Development should come on board. And I have also advised the farmers to approach those departments when I was doing the inspection, because I was looking at the conditions of where the workers are staying. And then I must say, some of the farmers are trying their best, but there are those who are also really don't do anything about the living conditions for
Now,
workers.
of course, you've sketched out two processes, the sectoral determination process and the individual negotiations that will be going on with farmers. Where are we in terms of stability in the sector? Are workers prepared to stick to your timeline, Minister, or are they going to go on, wildcat strikes?
Unfortunately, I didn't set the timeline. The 4th of December was mentioned by the Minister of Agriculture. Well, I was not sure what informed that decision, but I think the federations that were present in the meeting, they were supposed to advise her, particularly when it relates to the sectoral determination, the processes. But I hope, because there are negotiations that are between the unions and the employers, probably they have to decide whether they are going to finalize the negotiations so that they cannot go beyond the 4th. So I'm waiting for that process as well. But unfortunately, when it comes to the sectoral determination, I can't work outside of the labor relations of this country.
Now, in the press conference that you addressed earlier in Pretoria, you spoke out against the violence, not just in the mining sector, but also in the farming sector, where we've also had loss of life. In your dealings with trade unions and their employers, what have they committed to minimize the risk of violence that is characterizing labor disputes across various sectors?
That is why we have said the workers themselves in particular, I've said even the organized labor must assist to say, yes, the workers have the right to strike, but they don't have the right to be violent. Because immediately when you destroy the property, then that is a criminal act. And that is why then the police has to come in, because when you look at the Public Gatherings Act, the police are responsible for that particular act. And that is why also we have encouraged different unions and the employers to sit down and negotiate. If there are agreements that are on the table, the unions and the employers has to decide whether they reopen for negotiations or they continue with those agreements. Because at the end of the day, when you have the agreement on the table, the unions that are signatories on that agreement, they have to take a decision when whether they reopen for negotiations or not. So we are encouraging everybody to be responsible, so that at the end of the day, all of us can say, yes, we have a consensus, we have agreed on these issues. Because when you destroy the property where you are working, the question is, where are you going to go back for the employment?